We still got them in town.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of High Mythology, the show where we get higher than a thunderbird and a lightning storm and listen to Kim tell us stories. So, welcoming back, we got our two special guests.
Still Jeff over here.
I'm Timmy, A.K.A. the Fat Chef.
You may know them from our other podcasts and shows and pictures and just about everything Howley Boys, especially from Chewed Up and Spit Out. Kim is going to be reading us some Russian fairy tales, so without further ado, take it away, Kim.
No ado necessary.
Hi, thanks, guys. Thank you. This one's called Vasalisa the Beautiful. It's from Russian folklore. Yeah.
Vasalisa.
In certain Tarsdom, across 3 times 9 kingdoms, beyond high mountain chains, there once lived a merchant. He had been married for 12 years, but in that time there had only been born to him only one child, a daughter, from whom he cradled her, was called Vasalisa the Beautiful. When the little girl was 8 years old, her mother fell ill, and before many days it was plain to see that she must die. So she called her little daughter to her, took a tiny wooden doll from under her blanket of the bed, and put it in her hands and said, "My little Vasalisa, my dear daughter, listen to what I say. Remember well my last words, and fail not to carry out my wishes. I am dying, and with my blessing I leave to thee this doll. It is very precious, for there is no other like it in the whole world. Carry it always about with you in the pocket, and never show it to anyone. When evil threatens thee or sorrow befalls thee, go into a corner and take it from a pocket and give it something to eat and drink.
Feed that pocket doll. Oh, yeah.
Jesus, yeah. It will eat and drink just a little, and then thou mayest tell it thy trouble and ask its advice, and it will tell thee how to act in thy time of need."
Gotta talk to that pocket puppet.
So saying, she kissed her little daughter on the forehead and blessed her, and shortly after she died.
Aww.
Wow.
Maybe aim for not the forehead.
Little Vasalisa grieved greatly for her mother, and her sorrow was so deep that when the dark night came, she laid in her bed and wept and did not sleep. At length she bethought herself the tiny doll, and she rose and took it from the pocket of her gown.
Pocket puppet.
And finding a piece of wheat bread and a cup of savas, she set them before him and said, "There, my little doll, take it, eat a little, and drink a little, and listen to my grief. My mother is dead, and I am lonely for her." Then the doll's eyes began to shine like fireflies, and suddenly it became alive.
Chucky?
It ate a morsel of bread and took a sip of the kvass. And when
Kvassier?
Kvass? K-A-K-V-A-S-S.
Crevasse.
Kvass.
There's no R in there. Kvass, right?
Yeah.
And when
that's slang for Kvassier.
When you look into the crevasse looks back at you.
When it had eaten and took it a sip, it said, "Don't weep, little Vasalisa. Grief is worst at night. Lie down, shut thine eyes, and comfort thyself and go to sleep. The morning is wiser than the evening."
Do it, Vaseline.
So Vasalisa the Beautiful lay down and comforted herself and went to sleep. And the next day her grieving was not so deep, as her tears were less bitter.
See, it feels good to play with your pocket puppet.
My tears are sweet this morning. They're so much less bitter.
Wow. Now, after the death of his wife, the merchant sorrowed for many days, and was right. But at the end of the time, he began to desire to marry again, and looked about for a suitable wife. This was not difficult to find, for he had a fine house with a stable and swift horses.
Got a fine house.
Besides being a good man who gave much to the poor, all of the women he saw, however, the one who, to his mind, suited him best of all, was a widow about his own age with 2 daughters of her own. And she, he thought, besides being a good housekeeper, would be a kind foster mother to his little Vasalisa.
She'll be so good for Vasalisa.
So the merchant married the widow and brought her home to his wife. Brought her home as his
Russian.
wife.
That was a very horrible Russian accent.
But the little girl soon found out that her foster mother was far from being what her father had thought. She was cold and cruel woman who had the desire the merchant for the sake of his wealth and that had no love for his daughter.
Was she a ballerina as well? I mean, this sounds like Black Widow.
No idea.
It's a-
Vasilisa was the greatest beauty in the whole village, while the daughters of the foster mother were as sparse and homely as 2 crows.
2 fucking crows. Look at those crows.
That's almost a murder.
Yeah.
One short of
See
a murder.
that? Those 2 girls are so ugly, they're almost a murder.
Yeah, that's an attempted murder right there.
And it's interesting to hear how the different cultures use different animals to describe ugly people. And it's like, for some reason, the Russian one, it's like, they were ugly as crows. Okay.
Hippopotamus.
She was ugly as a kangaroo. What?
And because of this, all 3 envied and hated little Vasilisa.
Vasalisa.
I'm still stuck on Vaseline.
Vasalinsa.
They gave her all sorts of errands to run and difficult tasks to perform, in order that the toil might make her thin and worn, and that her face might grow brown from the sun and wind. They treated her so cruelly, and to leave her few joys for her life. But little Vasilisa endured all of this without complaint, and while her stepmother's 2 daughters always grew thinner and uglier in spite of the fact that they had no hard tasks to do, never went out in the cold or rain, and always sat there with their arms folded like ladies of a court. She herself had cheeks like blood of
Court
milk
crows.
and grew every day more and more beautiful. Now the reason for this was the tiny doll that
Pocket puppet.
All comes down to it.
Yeah.
without whose help little Vasilisa could never have managed to do all that work and was laid upon her.
Hey, you want to get high?
Each night, when everyone was sound asleep, she would get up from her bed and take the doll into her closet, locking the door and giving it something to eat and drink, saying, "There, my little doll, take it, eat a little, drink a little, and listen to my grief. I live in my father's house, but my spiteful stepmother wishes to drive me out of the white world. Tell me, how shall I act?" I know.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Vasalisa! Girl.
Proud Boys.
Tell
Stand
me,
by.
how shall I act and what shall I do? And the little doll's eyes would begin to shine like glowworms, and it would become alive. It would eat a little food and sip a little drink, and then it would comfort her and tell her how to act. While Vasilisa slept, it would
Need to act
get
right.
ready her all the work for the next day,
Hey, everybody.
so that she only had to rest in the shade and gather flowers. For the doll would have the kitchen garden weeded, the beds
I'm the
of the
pocket
cabbages
puppet.
watered, plenty of fish or fresh water brought from the wells, and the stoves heated exactly right. And besides, this little doll told her to make from a certain herb an ointment which provided her
Wanna
from
get
being
high?
sunburnt. So all the joy in
Jesus,
life
that
that
doll.
came to Visla came through the tiny doll that she always carried in her pocket.
Pocket puppet.
Pocket puff.
Chucky Beats Lawnmower
I
Man.
know, exactly. Like, where do
That's
you
how
get one
Chucky
of
should've
those?
been,
Yeah.
right?
Like, are you going to murder me, little doll? No, but if you feed me, I'll do all your chores and give you some suntan lotion
take
while
it
you
all
pick
at once
flowers. Yeah.
Don't
You're
take
so
it all at once,
nice.
Just
Yeah.
take a little bite.
Just take a little bite.
Not the worst trade-off, though, if you think about it.
No, you just keep the little pocket.
God-
And also, too, anytime you know if shit goes down, you just pull the doll out and you tell it, like, it's food time, and throw it in their face.
God forbid you get drunk.
You're yeah,
You don't
but
wanna-
it's obviously an alcoholic. She's been feeding it cognac since birth, you know. It's got that kvass, bro, that Cavassier.
So years passed till little Visla grew up and became an age where it was good to marry. All the young men in the village, high and low, rich and poor, asked for her hand, while not one of them stopped to even look at the stepmother's 2 daughters. So ill-favored were they.
Court crows.
This angered their mother still
Attempted
more
murder.
against Vasilisa. She answered every gallant who came with the same words. Never shall the younger be wed before the older ones. And each time, when she had
Yo,
let
bro,
a suitor
fall on
out
that
of
grenade.
the door, she would soothe her anger and hatred by beating her stepdaughter. So while Vasilisa grew each day more lovely and graceful, she was often miserable. But this little doll in her pocket would have longed to leave in this
The
white
more
world.
she plays, the more she beats me, the more I play with my pocket puppet.
Now there came a time
Feed it something.
when it became necessary for the merchant to leave his home and travel distant Tarsdom.
Sardoms.
Sardoms?
Zardoms.
He
It's
bade-
like kingdom, but ruled by a czar.
Okay.
Boom.
Okay.
Zardoms.
Starts with a C, not a Z. I get you.
T. Yeah.
He bade farewell to his wife and the 2 daughters, and kissed Vasilisa and gave her a blessing and departed, bidding them to say a prayer each day for his safe return. Scarce was he out for the sight of the village, however, when his wife sold his house, packed all of the goods, and moved them to another dwelling far from the town, in a gloomy neighborhood on the edge of a wild forest.
We move into the ghetto.
Moving to the ghetto.
Here every day while her two... Wow.
Sorry, I was a little late on the reaction there.
Here every day while her 2 daughters were working indoors, the merchant's wife would send Vasilisa on one errand or another into the forest, either to find a branch of a certain rare bush or to bring her flowers or berries.
Bring me some bushberries.
Now, deep in this
It's
forest,
not rare enough for
as
me.
the stepmothers
Find
well
some
knew,
more.
there was a green lawn, and on that green lawn stood a little hut with hen's legs.
What?
And there lived a certain Baba Yaga.
Baba Yaga.
All right, just has a hut on hen's,
Yeah,
on
she,
hen's legs.
okay,
really?
so, and I'll touch on this a little bit, and I'm not even using any actual references, just the things I know, but Baba Yaga is a ancient Russian, like, she's in a lot of their fairy tales, and she's basically like a witch. She offers deals. Usually they're not good, but she lives in a hut on chicken legs and rides around in a mortar and pestle.
Nice.
Yeah.
Can I call her Bubba for short?
Baba Yaga.
Aw.
Yeah, she's got and that's the other thing is she has that I remember is her fence is made out of people's heads.
Ooh.
And that's usually what she'll try to fuck you in a way to cut off your head and put it on her fence because she likes a fence full of
I'm
head.
gonna fuck you till you squeal.
I heard it was fashionable back in the day.
It was. Yeah. But yeah, big old chicken leg hut. Okay, Kim. Go ahead. Go on.
With a fence full of heads.
With a fence full of head. Chicken leg hut with a fence full of heads.
Lady Bubba.
Wow. So, there lived a certain Baba Yaga, an old witch grandmother. She lived alone, and none dare go near her hut, for she ate people as one eats chickens. The merchant's wife sent
Jeffrey Dahmer.
Vasilisa into the forest each day, hoping she might meet the old witch and be devoured. But always the girl would come home safe and sound, because the little doll showed her where the bush, the flowers, and the berries grew,
That's a
and did
smart
not
doll.
let her go near the hut that stood on the hen's legs. And each time the stepmother hated her more and more because she came to no harm.
One of these days she's gonna slither up them in their legs.
It is Russia, so like that doll might have been named Alexa.
Yeah.
Alexa. Oh.
Alexa, please tell me where I must go. Well,
One-
watch out for the fucking chicken legs. That's clearly weird. Yeah.
One autumn evening, the merchant's wife called the 3 girls to her and gave them each a task. One of her daughters she bade make a piece of lace, and the others knit a pair of hose. And to Vasilisa she gave a basket of flax to be spun. She bade each finish a certain amount, and then she put out all the fires in the house, leaving only a single candle to light the room where the 3 girls worked. She herself went to sleep. They worked an hour, they worked 2 hours, they worked 3 hours, and when the elder daughters took up the tongs to straighten the wick from the candle, she pretended to do this awkwardly, as her mother had bid her, and put the candle out, as if by accident.
Oops.
"What are we to do now?" asked her sisters. The fires are all out, and there is no other light in the house. And our
Baba
tasks
Yaga.
are not done.
Yeah.
We must go fetch fire, said the first, the only house near the hut in the forest where Baba Yaga lives. One of us must go and borrow fire from her.
Sounds like a good idea. Go see if that chicken leg lady has some fire. Let's knock on one of the fence heads.
I have enough light from my steel pens, said the one who was making the lace, and I will not go. And I have plenty of light from my silver needles, said the other who was knitting the hose. I will not
Fuck
go.
you, hoes.
Thou, Vasalisa, said to both, Thou shalt go fetch the fire, for thou haste neither steel pins nor silver needles cannot see the spin of
But
the
I got
flax.
that pocket.
Spinning flax.
And both rose up, pushed Vasalisa out of the house, and locked the door, crying, Thou shalt not come in until thou hast fetched the fire. I don't like how they talk.
Dun, dun, dun. Thou shalt not come in till thou hast fetched the fire.
See, that's how the Norse mythology was written too. But I was
Not
like,
pass.
Thou shalt not pass.
I feel like there should be like some really epic music, Eye of the Tiger maybe.
Yeah.
Ooh,
We
there
got
you go.
this. It's more like a
Not what I was
game
hoping
show.
for.
Yeah.
Not what I was hoping for.
It's the beginning of a game show, and now it's a game show.
So Vasilisa sat down on the doorstep and took the tiny doll from one of the pockets and the supper that she had already put inside of it. She put the food before it and said, There, my little doll, take it, eat a little, and listen to my sorrow.
Take it, my doll.
I must go to the hut of the old Baba Yaga in the dark forest to borrow some fire, and I fear she will eat me. Tell me, what shall I do? The doll's eyes began to shine like two stars, and it became alive. It ate what little
Some
it
girls
and
like that.
said, Do not fear, little Vasilisa.
Do not fear.
Go where thou shalt hast been sent. While I am with thee, no harm shall come to thee from the old witch. So Vasilisa put the doll back into her pocket and crossed herself.
Pocket doll.
And
Pocket puppet.
Pocket puppet.
darted out into the dark wild forest. Wherever she walked a short way or a long way, the telling is easy. But the journey was hard. The wood was very dark, and she could not help trembling from fear. Suddenly, she heard the sound of horse hooves, and a man on a horseback galloped past her. He was dressed all in white, and the horse under him was milk white.
Oh, well, with him maybe.
Milk white horse.
And the harness was white, and as he had passed her, it became twilight.
Oh, shit.
Bum, bum.
She went a little further, and again she heard the sound of the horse's hoofs, but there came another man on a horseback galloping past her. He was dressed all in red.
Oh, shit. Red Rider.
Hood.
Hood.
Red rum?
And the horse under him was blood red, and its harness was red. And just as he had passed her, the sun rose. And the whole day Vasilisa walked, for she had lost her way. She could not find any path in all this dark wood, and she had no food set before the little doll to make it alive. But at evening she came all at once to the green lawn where the wretched little hut stood on its head and legs. The wall around the hut was made out of human bones, and on its top were the skulls. There was a gate of the walls whose hinges were the bones of human feet, and whose locks were jaws bones set in sharp teeth. Wow. The sight filled Vasilisa with horror as she stopped at the post buried in the ground. As she stood there, a third man on horseback came galloping up. His face was black, and he was dressed in black, and the horse that he rode was coal black. He galloped up to the
Couldn't guess
gate of
that
the
one.
hut
Yeah.
and disappeared as if though he had sunk into the ground. And at that moment night came, and the forest grew dark.
Or black.
I don't know.
You're not supposed to wear blackface.
On a black horse while going through a black night. I get it.
But it was not the dark on the green lawn. For instantly the eyes of all the skulls on the wall were lit up, and the stones in the place were as bright as day. Seeing this, Vasilisa trembled with fear so that she could not run away. Then suddenly the woods became full of terrible noises, and the trees began to groan, and the branches began to creak, and the dry leaves began to rustle, And then Baba Yaga came flying from the forest. She was riding a great iron motor
and pestle.
and driving it with a pestle.
Yeah.
And
I don't
she
understand the
swept-
logic, but that's fucking scary, lady.
And she swept away the trail behind her with a kitchen broom. As she rode up to the gate,
proper.
she stopped, saying, little hut, stand away thy mother placed thee. Turn thy back to the forest and face me. And the little hut turned facing her and stood still. Then smelling all around her, she cried, "Foo, foo! I smell a smell that is Russian. Who is here?" Vasalisa, in the great fright, came near the old woman, and bowing very low, said, "It is only Vasalisa, grandmother. My stepmother's daughters sent me on thee to borrow some fire." "Well," said the old witch, "I know them. But if I give thee the fire, thou shalt stay with me some time and do some work to pay for it.
Oh.
If not, thou shalt be eaten for my supper."
That's fair enough.
Then she turned the gate and shouted, "Ho, ye my solid locks, unlock. Thou shalt
Ho.
gate open." Instantly the locks unlocked and the gate opened it on of itself. And the great Baba Yaga rode in whistling. Vasalisa entered behind
Russian
her,
witch, ho!
and immediately the gate shut
Oh.
again and locked snapped tight. Like slap shut, bitch.
Snap
Bye.
shut. Whoop, whoop.
When they had when they had entered the hut, the old witch threw herself down on the stove,
Oh, yeah.
stretched out her bony legs, and said, "Come, fetch and put the table once more everything that is in the oven. I am hungry." So Vasilisa ran and lighted the splinter of wood from one of the skulls on the wall, and took the food from the oven and set it before her. There was enough cooked meat for 3 strong men, and she also brought from the cellar kvass, honey beer and wine. Honey
Beer.
Kvass, honey beer and wine. And the Baba Yaga
Kvass
ate and
egg.
drank, and the whole, leaving the girl only a little cabbage soup and a crust of bread and a morsel of suckling pig.
Lucky you got that.
That's actually not that bad for
Yeah,
a little snack
that
right
would
there.
work like
You
in
got
some
some fucking
meat
hot
house back in the
cabbage,
day.
some suckling pig.
When her hunger was satisfied, the old witch, growing drowsy, lay down on the stove and said, "Listen to me well, and do what I bid thee. Tomorrow when I drive away, do thou clean the yard, sweep the floors, and cook my supper. Then take a quarter of a measure of wheat from my storehouse, and pick it out of all the black grains and the wild peas. Mine thou'st all of thy have bade. If not, thou shalt have been eaten for my supper." I'm so bad at that shit.
Mine douse.
Yeah, right.
Mine.
It
If
sounds
you don't, you're
demanding
gonna
to
be
the
fucking
point.
eaten. If you don't do your shit, you're gonna get eaten.
Yeah.
Was like this the original Karen? Seriously?
Yeah.
So,
Do my fucking shit. Make me dinner. I swear to God, I will eat you when I get home.
Yeah, I'm just laying down on the burner right now.
I'm just laying down on the burner. It's
fucking
just
cold
trying
in
to get
here.
warm. It's cold. We're doing some Russian shit. Yeah.
I mean,
Don't make
that
me
is
get my
just
mortar and
what
pestle
it
out.
I'm out
is.
here sipping my Cavassier and my honey beer.
Could be,
Yeah.
yeah. Presently, the Baba Yaga turned towards the wall and began to snore. And Vasilisa knew that she was fast asleep. Then she went into the corner and took the tiny doll from her pocket, put before her the bit of bread and the little cabbage soup that she had saved, burst into tears and said, "There, my little doll, take it, eat a little and drink a little, and listen to my grief. Here I am in the house of the old witch, and the gate in the walls is locked, and I am afraid. She has given me a difficult task, and I do not know if all that she has that I can obey by everything she has. I don't know if I could do the whole shit. She will eat me tomorrow. Tell me, what shall I do?" Then the eyes of the doll began to shine like 2 candles. It ate a little of the bread and drank a little of the soup and said, "Don't be afraid, Vasalisa the Beautiful. Be comforted. Say thy prayers and go to sleep. The morning is wiser than the evening." So Vasalisa trusted the little doll and was comforted.
Chucky. Yeah.
And
Don't worry,
she
I
said
got
her
this,
prayers,
bitch.
lay down on the floor, and went fast asleep. When she awoke the next morning, very early, it was still dark. She arose and looked out the window, and she saw in the eyes of the skulls on the walls were growing dim. As she looked, the man dressed all in white, riding the milk-white horse, galloped swiftly around the corner of the hut,
Milk horse.
leaped the wall, and disappeared. And he went. It became quite light, and the eyes of the skulls flickered and went out again. The old witch was in the yard, and she began to whistle, and the great iron motor and pestle and the kitchen broom flew out of the hut to her. As she got into the motor, the man, dressed all in red, mounted the blood-red horse, galloped like the wind across the corner of the hut,
that's style mounting.
and leaped the wall, and was gone. And at that moment, the sun rose. Then Baba Yaga shouted, "Ho, ye, my solid locks, unlock. Thou might shout my gate, open." The locks unlocked, and the gate opened, and she rode away in the motor, driving the pestle and sweeping the trail away behind her with the broom.
Keep a clean trail.
I know, that's good carbon energy. You need some of that. That's a hybrid.
Yeah.
That's a hybrid.
That's the hybrid mortar and pestle. It has a broom behind it to sweep up the mortar pestle dust.
Or multi-bread, hybrid, whatever.
It's a multi-bread.
When Vasalisa found herself left alone, she examined the hut, wondering to find it filled with such abundance of everything. Then she stood still, remembering all the work that she had been bidden to do, wondering where to begin first. But as she looked, she rubbed her eyes.
Pocket puppet.
The yard was already neatly cleaned, and the floors were nicely swept.
Good job,
The
doll.
little doll was sitting in the storehouse, picking the last black grains and wild peas out of the quarter measure of wheat. Vasilisa ran and took the little doll into her arm. "My dearest little doll," she cried, "thou hast saved me from my troubles. Now I only have to cook and the Baba Yaga supper, since the rest of the tasks are done." "Cook it, with God's help," said the doll, "and then the rest."
There's no God here.
God is dead. Baba Yaga has taken us.
I will name them Roomba.
"And then rest, and may the cooking of it make you healthy." And so saying, it crept into her pocket and became again only the little wooden doll.
Alexa, find me a recipe for borscht.
So Vasilisa rested all day and was refreshed. And when it grew towards evening, she laid the table for the old witch's supper and sat looking out the window, waiting for her coming. After a while, she heard the sound of horse hoofs, and the man in black and on the coal of black hole horse galloped up over the wall and disappeared in the great dark shadow.
Won't you come?
In an instant, it became quite dark, and the eyes of the skulls all began to glitter and shine. Then all at once the trees in the forest began to creak and groan, and the leaves and the rushes to moan and sigh, and the Baba Yaga came riding out of the dark woods in the huge iron motor, driving with the pestle and sweeping out the trail behind her with the kitchen broom. Vasilisa led her in, and the witch, smelling all around her, asked, "Well, thou hast done perfectly all the tasks I have given thee to do, or am I to eat thee for supper?" "Be so good as to look for thyself, grandmother," answered Vasilisa, and the Baba Yaga went about the place, tapping with her iron pedestal and carefully examining everything. But so well had the little doll done its work that, try as hard as she might, the old witch could not find anything to complain of. There was not a weed left in the yard, nor a speck of dust left on the floors, nor a single black grain or wild pea left in the wheat. She was greatly angered, but the obligation.
Damn you, Vaseline! Damn you!
But she was obligated to pretend to be pleased. "Well," she said, "thou hast done well." Then, clasping her hands, she shouted, "Ho, my faithful servants, friends of my heart, taste my grind, my wheat." Immediately 3 pairs of hands appeared and seized the measure of wheat and carried it away. The Baba Yaga sat down for supper, and Vasilisa put before her all the food from the oven, with kvass, honey, beer, and wine. The old witch ate it, bones and all, and almost the last morsel, and to the last morsel enough for 4 strong men. And then, growing drowsy, stretched her bony legs on the stove and said, "Tomorrow thou shalt hast done today. And besides these tasks, take from my storehouse a half measure of poppy seeds and clean them one by one. Someone has mixed earth with them, and they made
damn drugs.
do me mischief to make me angry."
Mama needs to be tired.
and I will have them perfectly clean.
Need that halo.
So saying, she turned to the wall and soon began to snore.
Oh.
When she was fast asleep, Vasalisa went to the corner and took the little doll from her pocket, set before her a part of the food that was left, and asked its advice. And the doll, when it had come alive and eaten some food and sipped a drink, said, "Don't worry, beautiful Vasalisa.
Vasalisa.
Be comforted. Do as thou did last night. Say thy prayers and go to sleep." So Vasalisa was comforted. She said her prayers and went to sleep and did not wake until morning. And when she heard the old witch in the yard...
Roofied.
Damn, this is a long story.
Witches in the yard.
Okay, sorry.
Hey, my mortar and pestle brings all the witches to the yard.
Yes.
She heard her whistling. She ran down to the window just in time to see her take her place in a big iron mortar as she did so. The man dressed all in red, riding on the blood-red horse, leaped over the wall and was gone, just as the sun rose over the wild forest. As it happened on the first morning, so it happened now. When Vasalisa looked,
Of course.
she had found the little doll to finish all the tasks except for the cooking of the supper. The yard was swept in order, the floors were clean as new wood, and there was not a single grain of earth left in the half measure of poppy seeds. She rested and refreshed herself until the afternoon, when she cooked the supper. And when every evening came, she laid the table and sat down to wait for the old witch coming.
Catch me a knife and some fire. I need a...
Have you ever tried to make a poppy plant to get the seeds out? Like, how much is like a lot of that?
It's going to take a lot of poppy, I think.
Soon the man in black on the coal-black horse galloped to the gate, and then the darkness fell, and the eyes of the skulls began to shine like day. Then the ground began to quake, and the trees in the forest began to creak, and the dry leaves to rustle, and the Baba Yaga came riding in her iron motor. Fucking goddamn, they say the same thing every time. Riding with her pestle, sweeping away the trail with her broom.
Sweeping that trail.
When she came in, she smelled around her and went all about in the hut, tapping with the pestle. But pry and examine as she might, again she was able to see no reason as to find fault, and was angrier than ever. She clasped her hands and shouted, "Ho, my trusty servants, friends of my soul, haste and press the oil out of my poppy seeds." And instantly the 3 pairs of hands appeared and seized the measure of poppy seeds and carried it away. Presently the old witch sat down to supper, and Vasalisa brought all about everything she had cooked, enough for 5 grown men, and then set it before her, and brought beer and honey, and then herself stood silently waiting. The Baba Yaga ate and drank.
Grown men sounds like a really big thing coming back over and over again.
I think you're talking about that.
I mean,
Yeah.
like dad bods, you know?
Dad bods, yeah. She ate like 5 middle-aged dudes. So like there's
Sizzler.
like 3 Cobb salads. Because, you know, they have to eat salads now.
The Baba Yaga ate and
Sizzler.
drank it all, every morsel leaving not so much as a crumb of bread, and then said snappishly, "Why does thou say nothing, but stand there, as if thou was dumb?"
Why are you looking so stupid?
"I spoke not," Vasalisa answered, "because I dared not. But if thou wilt allow me, grandmother, I wish to ask thee some questions." "Well," she said, the old witch, "only remember that every question does not lead to a good. If thou knowest overmuch, thou wilt grow old too soon. What wilt thou ask?" "I would ask thee," said Vasalisa, "of the men on horseback. When I came to thy hut, a rider passed me, and he was dressed all in white, and he rode the milk-white horse."
Milk horse.
"Who was he?" "That was my white bright day," answered the Baba Yaga angrily. "He is a servant of mine, and he cannot hurt thee. Ask me more." Afterwards Vasalisa, the second rider, overtook me. He was dressed in red, and the horse he rode was blood red. "Who was he?" "That is my servant, the round red sun," answered the Baba Yaga, "and he too cannot injure thee." And she grounded her teeth. "Ask more." The third rider, Vasalisa, came galloping up on the gate, and he was black, and his clothes were black, and his horse was coal black. Who was he? She said, "That is my servant, the Black Dark Knight. He can also not harm thee. Ask me more." But Vasalisa, remembering what the Baba Yaga had said, that not every question led to good, was silent. "Ask me more," cried the old witch. "Why dost thou not ask me more?
Definitely
Ask
chatty.
thee
Chatty.
of the pair of hands that serve me."
God
But
damn it, Karen.
But Vasalisa saw how she snarled at her, and she answered, "The 3 questions are enough for me, and thou hast said, grandmother, I would not through knowing overknow too much and become old too soon." "It is well for thee," said Baba Yaga, "that thou did not ask more of them, but only of what thou did see outside of this hut. Hast thou asked them, my secret servants, the 3 pairs of hands would have seized thee also, and they did the wheat and the poppy seed to be my food. Now I would ask thee a question in turn. How is it that thou hast been able in a little time to do perfectly all the tasks I have given thee? Tell me." Vasalisa was so frightened that she could see how the old witch grounded her teeth, and that she could almost told her of the little doll. But she bethought to herself that just in time the answer, "The blessing of my dead mother helps me."
Got that blessing.
I guess. Then the Baba
Jurassic
Yaga
Price.
sprang up in
Yeah.
fury. "Get thee out of my house this moment," she shrieked. "I want no one who bears a blessing to cross my threshold. Get out. Get gone."
Get your blessing and get the fuck out of my house.
Good call. Like a
the
blasphemy can be a
fucking-
blasphemy to like Satanist, you know?
Yeah. Don't you ask me a single question about another guy on a fucking horse. Just take your blessed ass and get the fuck out.
And be happy.
Be happy. Have a good
I
life.
didn't eat you.
I appreciate the work you did. I will eat you, though, if I see you again.
Vasalisa ran to the yard, and behind her she heard the old witch shouting to the locks
Yo,
and
where's
gates.
my fire?
Locks open,
Oh!
gates swing wide, and she ran out onto the lawn.
Oh.
The Baba Yaga seized from the wall one of the skulls with burning eyes and flung it at her. "There," she yellowed,
Here's
"is
your
the fire
fucking
for your
fire."
stepmother's daughters.
There's
Take
your
it.
fucking fire.
That is what they sent thee here for, and may they have joy of it." Vasalisa put the skull in the end of the stick and darted away towards the forest, running as fast
fuck
as she
outta
could,
here.
finding the path by the skull's growing eyes.
Upset
Which
the
went
whole
out.
thing straight to the living room.
Don't make me get my spoon.
Whether she ran a long way or a short way, and whether the road was smooth or rough towards the evening of the next day, when the eyes of the skull were beginning to glimmer, she came out of the dark in the wild forest near her stepmother's home. When she came near the gate, she thought, surely by this time they will have found some fire, and
It's
threw
been
the
like a
skull
week.
into
Yeah.
the hedge. But it spoke to her and said, "Do not throw me away, beautiful Vasalisa. Bring me to thy stepmother." So looking at the house and seeing no sparks of light
straight
in any
tripping,
of the
yo.
windows, she looked up to the skull again and carried it with her. Now, since Vasalisa had gone, the stepmother and the 2 daughters had had neither fire nor light in all the house. And when they struck flint and steel, the tinder would not catch, and the fire that they had brought from their neighbors would go out immediately, as soon as it was
Sucks to
carried
suck.
over into the threshold. So they had been unable to light or warm themselves or cook or eat any food. Therefore now, for the first time in her life, Vasalisa found herself welcomed. They opened the door to her,
Who brought the fire?
and the
bitches?
merchant's wife was greatly
Want that
rejoiced to
wop.
find the light. The skull did not go out as soon as it was brought in. "Maybe the witch's fire will stay," she said, took the skull into the best room, and set it on a candlestick, and called her 2 daughters in to admire it. But the eyes of the skull began to glimmer and glow like
Conceited.
red coals. And whenever the 3 turned or ran, the eyes followed them, growing larger and brighter till they flamed up like 2 furnaces, hotter and hotter,
I'm looking at you.
until the
Peekaboo.
merchant's
Hey,
wife.
come on.
I feel you.
It's like, yeah.
So yeah, but the eyes of the skulls would suddenly begin to glimmer and glow like red coals, and whenever the 3 turned or ran, the eyes would follow them, growing larger and brighter until they flamed like 2 furnaces, hotter and hotter, until the merchant's wife and her 2 wicked daughters took fire and were burned to ash.
Fuck yeah.
Only Vasalisa the Beautiful was not touched.
Deuces,
Well,
bitch.
I got fire. I told you guys I could get fire. The rest is on you.
In the morning, Vasalisa dug up a deep hole in the ground and buried the skull.
And her
Then she
fucking
locked
dead family.
the house and
Nah,
set out to the
just
village,
dust.
where she went to live with an
Dust
old
in the
woman
wind.
who was poor and childless, and so she remained for many days, waiting for her father's return from the distant kingdom. But sitting lonely, time soon began to hang heavy on her hands. One day, she said to the old woman, "It is
Heavy
dull for
time.
me, grandmother, to sit idly hour by hour. My hands want work to do. Go, therefore, and buy me some flax, and the best and the finest to be found anywhere, and at least I can spin." The old woman hastened.
Yeah. Gotta spin that
I feel a little
flax.
bad. She tells the old woman to go out and fucking get some shit.
Yeah, go.
So the old woman hastens and brought some
Don't make me
flax
go get
and
my
the
skull.
best sword. And Vasilisa sat down to do work. And well did
Burn your
she
fucking house.
spin that the thread came out as even and fine as her hair. And presently there was enough to begin to weave. But so fine was the thread that no frame could be found to weave it upon, nor would any weaver undertaker.
Weaver
To make one.
Undertaker.
Then Vasilisa went into her closet, took the little doll from her pocket, set some food and drink before it, and asked for its help. And after it had eaten and drank a little, the doll became alive and said, "Bring me an old frame and an old basket and some hairs from the horse's mane, and I will arrange everything for
Horse's
thee."
ass.
Vasilisa hastened to fetch the doll all that he had asked for. And when evening came, she said her prayers and went to sleep, and in the morning she found ready a frame, perfectly made to weave for her fine thread upon. She wove 1 month, and then she wove 2 months, and then all winter. Vasilisa sat and weaving her fine thread, until the whole piece of linen was done, and of the texture so fine that could be passed like a thread, though even the eye of a needle. When the spinning came, she bleached it, so white that no one could be compared with it. And then she said to the old woman, "Thou take the linen to the market, grandmother, and sell it, and then the money thou shall suffice to pay for my food and lodging." And when the old woman had examined the linen, however, she said, "Never will I sell such a cloth in such a marketplace. No one should wear it except for the Tsar himself, and tomorrow I shall carry it to the palace."
This is a king's robe.
I guess so.
Apparently, fucking so.
Yeah. It's quite a
Jesus,
long
that's-
story, too.
Oh,
It's almost
Or,
done. Sorry.
yeah, okay.
Okay, so the next day, accordingly to the old women, went to the Tsar's splendid palace and fell into walking up and down before the windows. The
Like, what it
servants
made
came
you
to ask
glad?
her errand, but she answered them nothing and kept walking up and down. At length the Tsar opened his window and asked, "What thou want, the old woman? And what thou's here?" "Oh, Tsar Majesty," said the old woman, answered, "I have with me a marvelous piece of linen stuff, so wondrously
Linen
woven that I
stuff.
should show it to none but thee." The Tsar bade them to bring her before him, and when she saw the linen, he was struck by
Gaze upon
astonishment
my
at the
linens.
fineness and beauty. "What wilt thou take for it, old woman?" he asked. "There is no price that can buy it." "Our father Tsar," she answered, "but I have brought it to thee as a gift." The Tsar could not thank the old woman enough. He took the linen and sent her to her house with many rich presents. Seamstresses were called to make shirts for him out of the cloth, but when it had been cut up so fine that it had none of them could defeat the skill well enough to sew it back. So he took the
Seamstresses
piece of
can't
linen and he
sew.
fucking cut it up.
Yeah.
And then
Oh,
it just
yeah.
fucking fell apart
It
like
just
a fool.
fell apart like an asshole.
Damn it.
We fucked it up. I was
Damn
trying
it.
to make a sleeveless tank top so I could show off my guns when I'm at the beach.
and you done fucked it up.
And done fucked it up.
The seamstresses, the best seamstresses of all of Sardom. Sardom.
The seamstresses in the Sardom. The
Were
seamstresses in
summoned.
the Sardom.
But none dare to undertake it. So at last the Tsar sent for
Not
the
doing
old
it.
woman
Never.
and said, "If thou didn't know how to spin such thread and weave such linen. Thou must know how to sew me shirts from it. And the old woman answered, O Tsar Majesty, it was not I who wove the linen. It is the work of my adopted daughter. Take it then, said Tsar, and bid her to do it for me. The old woman brought the linen home to Vasalisa. And Tsar's
Vaseline.
command. Well, I knew that the work would need to be done with my own hands, said Vasalisa, and locking herself in her own room began to make the shirts. So fast and well did she work that soon a dozen were ready, and the old woman carried them to the
Is it a
Tsar.
baker's dozen?
Well, he
Vasalisa-
likes tank top style, but with the belly cut out too.
Ooh.
V-neck too.
V-neck, yeah.
It's that deep V.
TV.
The deeper the V, the hipster. I don't know.
The buffer you be.
Yeah, there you go.
So well and so fast did she do her work that soon a dozen were ready. And the old woman carried them to the Tsar, while Vasilisa washed her face, dressed her hair, and put her best gown, and sat down in the window to see what would happen. As presently a servant in the livery of the palace came to the house and said, The Tsar, our lord, desires himself to see the clever needlewoman who has made his shirts, and reward her with his own hands.
Need a good old needle.
Vasilisa rose and
Gotta
went
get
out
that
to the
needle in.
palace, and as soon as the Tsar saw her, he fell in love with her. And with all his soul he took her
Ew.
by her white hand and made her sit beside him. Beautiful maiden, he said, never will I part from thee, and thou shalt be my wife. So the Tsar and Vasalisa the Beautiful were married. And the
Gross.
father returned from the distant kingdom. He and the old woman lived always with her in the splendid palace, and all the joys and contentment. And as for the little wooden doll, Vasilisa carried with her in her pocket with all her life.
Can't touch my pocket puppet.
Can't touch my pocket doll,
Even with your needle threading dick.
even with your thread dicks. Yeah.
That's the end of the
Yeah,
story.
that was
That's
that was
crazy.
a stag, yeah.
Fuck
It's like a
me.
So
Cinderella.
yeah, it was
Chucky.
like Cinderella, except for
Meets Chucky,
meets
the
Chucky meets her family got burned alive. That I like that whole twist on it.
Well, it might make a stigmata, you know.
Yeah.
it
Well,
was interesting.
yeah. What were you reading, Kim? What was say the name of it?
It's called Russian Fairy Tales.
Alrighty. Who's it by?
Recorded by Alexander Astavio.
Astavio.
Afanasasti.
Well, I appreciate, you know, his works on this one. You know.
Afanas.
Afanastiev. Afanastiev, I think.
Alexander.
Well,
It's called
sure,
Russian
like
Fairy
a
Tales.
Prost to you.
Prost. Alexander.
Astrovia.
Trophy.
Fabulous.
Well, thanks everybody.
Yeah, and Kim, fine job on reading tonight, as always.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you guys for joining us for this. It's been really fun having a couple extra voices in on the high mythology. I think it's been real
What I got out
funny.
of this whole thing is, if you're gonna play with your pocket puppet,
Do it
bring
at
some
night
Vaseline.
and bring some Vaseline stuff
Nutshell.
in a nutshell.
All right, cheers, y'all. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Have a
Good
good one.
night.